Good evening, afternoon, morning, night, whenever you find it most convenient to join us at the Bonfire. It's been a minute, but if you've forgotten who we are, I, as always, am Alan the Pole with a goal. And that goal right now is to maybe get some Culvers later, honestly. I'm feeling some Culvers tonight. I am always, as always, joined by my lovely jubbly co-hosts, DJ.
If you ever get Culver's, a good tip, get the cheese sauce, put the sauce, make a well inside of the bun, put the sauce in the bun, and eat the Culver's burger upside down. It is delicious.
I'll try that out, as well as Tim.
Late night Culver's run. All right.
Always a good time, yeah. Man, I could tell that I haven't done this in a while because I'm flubbing over my words. So let's just get right into the news. Let's start off with just a few Fire awards. And then afterwards, we'll talk about some of the big juicy stuff that you guys want to hear, stuff like Berhalter making some front office news. So starting off with some of the Fire awards, Hugo Kuipers ended up winning the most valuable player for the Fire. Chris Brady wins Defender of the Year. So Kuipers, he also already won the Golden Boot since he had 10 goals, becoming the 10th player to win both awards in the same season, and the first since Robert Beric in 2020. I'm pretty sure he's also the last goal scorer since Robert Beric to actually hit double digits when it comes to goals.
Yep.
Brady also becomes the 6th player and the 3rd goalkeeper to win back-to-back Defender of the Year titles after he basically kept the Fire in multiple games, even when the Fire desperately didn't want to be kept in them. So,
yeah. The one thing I will say about Brady is that his numbers, both in terms of like basic as well as advanced stats, did regress a little bit this season. But a lot of that really was dependent on the way the team was playing around him. And I don't think he didn't become a way worse goalie over the past year. He, I think, actually improved with a lot of the work that he was doing, and I think you can see that. And I think he's increasingly become a vocal force in the dressing room. So, yeah. I think that we're going to see a big jump in Brady's underlying stats in the next season.
Yeah, I like the second part that you said a lot, especially. You can tell that he is maturing, not just as a person, but as a player. And like you said, taking command. You can tell that Brady, honestly, out of a lot of the players in that locker room, is like one of the ones that will like very much stand up and be vocal about like what he believes and like talking to the fans and whatnot.
The match that Tom Barlow scored his first goal of the season. Brady is one of the only players in the locker room. They don't have to talk to reporters after. He's one of the only guys he was the only guy that was always going to be there for us to talk to, pretty much regardless of whatever happened. And we, so asked him a couple of questions, and he actually stopped us basically to shout out Tom Barlow and talk about how good it was that he finally scored a goal. He said basically all of the right things you could possibly say about a teammate, that he was always starting 11 in his mind, even if he wasn't always in the starting 11 lineup. And just showed, tremendous maturity for a guy his age. And that's a kind of leadership that, there are leaders in that locker room for sure. But that's the kind of leadership that I think the Fire did not have enough of last season. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's doing it at such a young age, I think, is really commendable. Like I forget how young he is so much of the time, just because of how mature he is all the time.
Yeah, honestly, I constantly forget that Brady is like younger than me, and it's like by a bit, and I'm like, oh wow, he's very professional. So good on for Brady.
For the record, Brad Guzan is still older than me, so I got that going for me.
Lovely jubbly. So moving on from one Fire to the other Fire, we have Fire 2. One thing that we also have to mention is that David Poreba, he was named the MLS Next Pro MVP. So like of the entire league, he was the MVP. So congrats to David Poreba. pretty sure he's also top goal scorer.
Yep, Golden Boot winner.
Golden Boot winner. So
20 goals in 2,719 minutes.
Incredible.
2 assists too, which like, hey, that take it.
No, go for it. Yeah. So congratulations to him. Fire 2, they did make the postseason. Their first game, they ended up winning against Orlando B in penalties. Unfortunately, in the next round, they failed to beat Columbus in the playoffs. They lost 3-2. And what was honestly an extremely tight game. The Fire 2 really tried pushing it. They kept getting answers, but unfortunately, Columbus just answered back even faster to make it 3-2. So,
yeah, a couple unfortunate bounces in that game. I think that Columbus sort of outmuscled the Fire at a couple key moments that was just unfortunate. But Columbus are a good team. They ended up falling in the Eastern Conference Final one round after they beat the Fire, but that's the first year that they weren't in the MLS Next Pro Cup. So, I mean, they have been the best team in the league in the 3 years of its existence. So losing to them is not honestly anything to be ashamed of. They played well, and it was another year of progress for the team that failed to make the playoffs the first year, made it to the first round the second year. They were the one team that nobody wanted to pick last year because you get to pick your opponents of the lower seeds, and they were the one team nobody picked. This year, they were a higher seed, but were the last higher seed, so they just didn't get to pick their opponent again. But it was another year of progress, finishing fourth. Like it has been an upward trajectory for this team every year from the beginning.
Yeah. Though we will see how this trajectory continues. Since the Fire recently announced the departure of head coach Ludovic. He was the inaugural coach of Fire 2 when this whole thing started. Before then, he was a youth coach from 2019. And he ultimately saw the second team finish in the playoffs 2 out of his 3 seasons, ending with a 28, 27, 25-12 record. Tim, can you remind us what do those numbers mean again? Because I keep forgetting.
DJ put them together, and I do it the normal way.
Wins on PKs, losses on PKs, and losses. Which, to be fair, that is just directly from the Fire.
I know the Fire does it. Like MLS makes you do it the wrong way, which is like put it like.
At least I think that's what it is. I am not positive. I just copy and paste. I was like, this is too complex for my mind right now. This is math. I don't do that math there.
Yeah. It's weird. It's even more weirder than like how they have it in hockey as well. They just have it wins loss and then like shootout losses. So like yeah.
So the confusing thing is that because for like international record keeping purposes, a game that ends at the end of regulation in a draw is a draw, and then there's the shootout win, which is separate because you got to. It's confusing, but yeah, Ludovic Talengier, I thought was really like a really strong coach for the Fire. He predates Georg Heitz, and so he was one of the like longer tenured members of the sporting side of the team. The Fire 2 played a recognizable brand of soccer that was fun to watch. It was possession based. It had a really coherent structure in the attack. The squad wasn't perfectly built, and like no squad ever is. And so I think there were adaptations that happened over time. Like as is not uncommon, especially at that level, they ended up trying to send a little bit too much of the offense through out wide rather than trying to play through the half spaces and stuff. But you could tell what the ideas were watching that team, and they were always fun to watch. I mean, honestly, they were more watchable soccer than the first team for a lot over the past 3 seasons of their existence. And I think that's a lot of that is credit to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just all the best to him as he continues on in his career, and we'll see what happens with Fire 2. Hopefully they can continue on that upward trajectory. I mean, he said that next year we finish in second. But yeah, so hopefully we'll see that continuing upward trend.
I
Yeah,
will say
Yes, please.
as well, hopefully Patrick Nyarko now becomes the Fire 2 head coach. That would be like my dream is Patrick Nyarko gets appointed to that. Or the other side is they bring in Gonzalo Cigares. Either way.
I think that is going to be an interesting hire, right? Because we know that Joe Mansueto really does like Fire alumni hires. We also know that this is Gregg Berhalter's team on the sporting side at this point. And in a certain way, he's been. I'm not trying to say this in a bad way, but like he has been unsentimental with the choices he's made so far. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah. Which I think is what you need to do if you're trying to turn the team around. You can't keep everything the same and expect things to change. But I think that it'll be interesting to see who he hires. I will have a piece up on Men in Red 97. It probably by the time this comes out about the conundrum that Fire 2 presents. I had a chance to talk to Berhalter briefly about the way that they've used Next Pro, because that's something that didn't exist the last time he was in the league before this hire. And so, yeah, that should be up by the time that this podcast is out.
Yep. So the last piece of Fire news, apart from, the front office moves, is that Victor Bezerra has announced that he is leaving the Fire. He was on loan to Detroit City, where he ended up scoring 3 goals in 18 appearances. We signed him as a homegrown in 2021. He appeared 5 times. He got a yellow card in 43 minutes. He also played 26 games in 2 seasons with Fire 2. He got the Golden Boot in 2022 with 11 goals and 3 assists. So, again, just all the best to Victor in his career.
Victor is one of the 3 players left they haven't announced their options on. The other 2 are Brian Dowd and Lawrence Wooten, both of whom are on loan. Unfortunately, this was about as expected as anything. It was a lot like Alan Rodriguez last year, where it would have been more of a shock if they said that he was coming back than if he wasn't.
Yeah, and Victor Bezerra, just to be clear, he posted something. It was since deleted. I assume that it will be made official soon. And he just deleted it because he didn't want to jump the team being ready to, make the announcement, which talk about being a good team player. Being a good team player when they tell you you're not on the team anymore is next level team player.
Yep.
His dad on Instagram, his dad commented and basically was talking about how amazing of a son he was too, which is actually very nice to see.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if this was Victor's last job in the sport. So, Same thing with Ludovic. Like I think that they both can find other landing places that will, probably be better just for the situation, because there's a transformation going on in the Fire, and I think that it's not an indictment on any individual person or their ability or their talent or anything else if they don't have a spot right now, because I think that availability of space and just being able to make those choices for Berhalter and his team is more important than what an individual's abilities may or may not be for a lot of these cases.
Yeah. All right. Just one other sort of piece of news that's not Fire related, but sort of is. The Bears are now officially linked with the former Michael Reese Hospital site for the new stadium report. For the new stadium they're looking for, per a report in Cranes, one of the 3 locations that Joe Mansueto confirmed that the team has visited, because the Fire have now also expressed looking at a new stadium. So It just another little paragraph in the storybook of Chicago teams looking for new stadiums with the Bears, the Fire, the Red Stars, or Stars FC. No, still calling them the Red Stars, and the White Sox, all looking for new stadiums in the city.
It honestly feels like a game of musical chairs with like different teams, because it's like the White Sox and the Fire have both, expressed an interest in the 78 site, basically to the west of where Soldier Field is. The White Sox have basically said they don't want to stay where they are. They've offered that site to the Red Stars, who said they didn't want a site that didn't work for people. There's the Michael Reese site, which like the Fire and Bears have both been linked with. And there's kind of the wild card of Lincoln Yards, where initially there was supposed to be a USL. The Ricketts, the owners of the Cubs, briefly held the rights. They may still. I don't think. I think they got rid of it. I'm 90% sure of this. The rights to a USL expansion team that was initially going to play at a new stadium in Lincoln Yards. So there's been a lot of musical. It just is like everyone is trying to figure out where they're going to sit. The only teams that seem to be comfortable where they are play indoors.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, the teams that are playing indoors, they're already making their own sort of. I mean, then the Jerry Reinsdorf announced that they're building, like they're doing this whole developmental like thing around the United Center. So just even their teams, they're doing some things around their stadium. So it is, if I'm correct, the 30th anniversary of the United Center being built. So also,
yes,
interesting fun fact.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If those walls could talk.
Yeah. So,
but no, it's I think the Michael Reese site. It's basically south of McCormick Place. So it's if you go from the south lot of the current Soldier Field tailgate situation across the convention center, you're basically there. It's about a half a mile from the Green Line, but there's not a stop there. It touches the Metro Electric lines, but the stop there is not well located, so that may have to get relocated. I think it makes a lot more sense for a Bears stadium than it does for a Fire stadium, just given the numbers and size of people, the fact that like going to a Bears game is more of an all-day event than a Fire game. So I think that being closer to transit and stuff like that is more important for a soccer team. Just ask Germany. Or like most other countries in Europe.
Take the train.
But yeah, exactly. So like I think that we'll see how this all plays out. The odd possibility that opens up is if the Bears are no longer eyeing a lakefront stadium in what is now the south lot for Soldier Field / like Fire tailgates and stuff like that. You do sort of wonder, like, is there going to be a possibility of a reuse or rebuilding of Soldier Field? It seems like no. It seems like the Fire are not really considering that, because one thing Mansueto talked about is that basically, he was very polite about this and diplomatic, so this is not a quote, but the Chicago Park District, who manage and own Soldier Field, have not exactly been an ideal landlord for a professional sports franchise. There's limitations with what they can control in terms of the match day experience. There's limitations in terms of the concessions they can provide, in terms of the prices that they can get for different things, and in terms of just like one of the issues for the Bears was they wanted to have on-site betting area, even willing to build one outside of Soldier Field proper, but the Park District, it was like a non-starter with the Park District. So we'll see how that adapts.
Yeah, there's just I've expressed my feelings when it comes to Soldier Field. Location is, well, first of all, location's great because it's easy to get there by public transit. It's in a really nice area on the lakefront, but then you have Soldier Field itself, the UFO that landed on a historic site, and just like the
Mm-hmm.
bureaucracy out of it all. Like just trying to do anything is just
And you say it's convenient for public transit, but like for a site that close to the loop, you can't really be farther from the L, you know? I mean,
But like you have the L, and then you still have the CTA bus. And then
sure.
there's also the option of just walking, which is only like a 10-15 minute walk, depending on how fast you walk, which is what I always usually do. And first of all, it's not like you're walking through a very like you're not like you're walking through like you're walking down Harlem on a very up the tall bridge, or going over the railroad tracks towards Bridgeview or something. You are walking through the like a really nice museum campus. So
Sure.
that
But you're also not
that's my
walking
argument.
past like a lot of like stuff to do. I think that I've heard people express that after games, they're a little bit worried because of it's dark, the museums are closed, so there's not that many people around that are not coming from the Bears or like the Bears or the like Fire, like whatever the event is games. And you know, for people that have mobility issues or people that have like, you know, families like with kids in strollers and stuff like that, that it really isn't as like, again, for being that close to the heart of like the dead center of Chicago, like downtown,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to imagine a place that is like that has that many issues of like it's just a 20-minute walk from the nearest L station. Like that doesn't happen for the Art Institute. It's like right there. So it's a good location. The location is not 100% perfect. It's disconnected from neighborhoods around it. There's not like a bar you can go to after the matches and stuff like. So there again, like it's not a
There's
perfect situation.
limitations, yeah.
Exactly. Like it's a great location, and like if somebody was like, "Hey, Joe Mansueto, like, do you want to build a soccer stadium here?" I mean, the answer should just be yes because of how good the location is, but it's also not a perfect location.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, yep. Just another chapter in the ever crazy stadium talk. We'll see where this is in the next decade.
I will find it funny too if Michael Reed's hospital ends up going from the first plan of it back 15 years ago of we're going to turn this into an Olympic village to here the Bears can have it. That's definitely one trajectory I don't think many people saw coming.
Yep, that's true.
Yep. All right. So let us begin to talk about sort of our main point of the podcast, and that is the beginning of Berhalter's front office build out. So he's really putting his mark on this team in terms of changing some of the coaching staff as well as the front office. So one of the first things is that the Fire have hired a former Fire player in Michael Steffens as head of player recruitment, as well as Gregg I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I just don't want him. Broughton as sporting director. So Stevens from Naperville, he joins from the LA Galaxy, where he's been since April of 2022. He was also a scout for the U.S. men's national team from 2019 to 2022. And then prior to that, he was with the Fire from 2018 to 2019. He also played from the Galaxy all the way back in 2010 to 13. He played in Norway in 2014 and then in the Fire for 2015, 2016. He was also, fun fact, a part of the San Francisco Deltas, who won the 2017 NASL Soccer Bowl, the final NASL tournament and trophy before the league folded.
Oh, the second incarnation of the NASL, just to be 100% clear about.
Yes, that's the second incarnation.
The one that apparently decided it was going to challenge MLS, and then the owner didn't realize what that actually entailed. But Stevens is actually a very interesting hire. From my understanding of the Galaxy, he was very, very well respected, if I remember correctly from what I've seen. So it's definitely one of the good hires. And Stevens brings the MLS experience that the team actually very much needs right now, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah. And he's a Fire alum, so that's like, again, like hits that box, which I think is, you know, in a short-term sense, I think that could be a limitation. It's obviously not a hard requirement because then Gregg Berhalter wouldn't be here. But I think in the long run, it probably does help the team's fortunes in terms of like being able to establish a culture, which Mansueto has talked about as being very important to the team.
Yeah.
By the way, I do have confirmation. We did ask. He does like going by Mikey, not Michael.
Mikey Smith.
Mikey.
Oh, I remember that from when he was a player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mikey.
No. So like the fact that he said that when he was like 20 something, I was like, all right, but like, you know, dude, like, I mean, I'm like on the long side of my 30s. So I'm like, let me just make sure that Mikey is still the name he wants to go by, but it is. So, hey.
Nice. So the other Brogdon, as we mentioned, he joins after leaving Blackburn Rovers in England, where he was the sporting director from 2020 to 2024, June. And prior to that, he was the academy manager for Bodo Glimt, Norwich, and Luton Town. So he brings more of a European/English experience over to the Fire as sporting director.
Yeah, I think it's... Go ahead, DJ. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, this is one of those signings or one of those appointments that I think actually would work really well because it brings in the European side where you still have a lot of MLS experience, which was something Heights did not do at the beginning.
Yes, that was the one thing that Heights was lacking in the beginning of his tenure. He very much focused on the European side and like trying to run the team like a European team, and it really didn't work out. And he finally realized, oh yeah, to run an MLS team, we should probably have some, MLS experience.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, there was MLS experience in the front office, still like Eddie Rock and others. But they weren't in high level positions. And I think the question is like, how much of a sway did they really have in some of these questions? And I mean, I honestly don't have the answers to that. But I think that the interesting thing about, Gregg Berhalter being brought in, other than him being a second Gregg with 2 G's, not short for Gregory, which is just like the chances of that have to be astronomically low.
Yep.
Before his most recent gig, his focus, the focus of his career was on academy development and bringing in youth players, like both like graduating them through the system and also bringing in talented youth into the system and doing something with that. When he was with Brodo in Norway, the team beat AS Roma when they were Jose Mourinho was the coach at that point, 6-1 in one stage of the Europa Conference League. They had, I think it was either 3 or 4 academy graduates in their starting 11.
Wow.
So, I mean, now obviously, like, Broughton wasn't there for the time that a lot of these guys developed because, like, but it says something, I think, about the seriousness with which that club has been taking its academy and the seriousness with which the Fire are taking academy production, because it's something that Joe Mansueto consistently mentioned when Frank Klopas was heavily hinting that he was not going to be the head coach next year, but wasn't saying it outright to us. He said that his dream was to see a future where the Fire won MLS Cup with, 70% academy graduates. And so I think that this hire is interesting in that context. I've got a piece in Minute Red 97 up now where, I mean, I go through like a little bit of his history and, dug up some quotes and stuff like that from previously from him. So you can read that for that context. But I think that this reaffirms that Mansueto is 100% serious when he's talking about this being a sort of academy-led club in terms of the model that they're looking for, while also so far he's still been more than willing to spend on transfers from abroad.
Yep. And then also we mentioned some coaching changes. And the Fire have announced the departure of assistant coaches Paulo Nagamura as well as Carlos Garcia. Um, one recently fired head coach from Austin FC and former Fire player Josh Wolf. He is a leading candidate, or probably a leading candidate, to be hired by Berhalter, since he was with Berhalter when he was at Columbus during that entire tenure, as well as he went to the U.S. men's national team before himself being hired by Columbus.
Austin, apologies. I messed that up in the script. Sorry.
He's certainly on the list of, I think, that players are of coaches that are under consideration by Berhalter and the team. You know, Berhalter certainly has people that he's worked with before, and he, you know, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for him to continue working with people that he's found chemistry with. You know, in terms of the dismissals, I don't think that anything is that unexpected here. Paulo Nagamura had previous MLS head coaching experience. He joined the Fire. Well, he also didn't have a ton of resources at his disposal with the team that he led in Houston. He was behind the bench for one game when Frank Klopas was suspended for leaving the technical area.
Oh yeah,
and the team lost. I think that Nagamura, you could see the emotion that he had a couple of times. There's a GIF that I circulated on Fire social media showing his frustration at the way the team was playing at one point of one game earlier in the season. I think what that means is that Gregg is going to bring in his own assistants, which nobody should be surprised about. No. Same thing with Carlos Garcia. I've never thought about somebody being a journeyman coach, but the guy started coaching in 2017 and already had stops in Israel, China, and Ecuador. That's he
only has 3 continents left and he finishes the trifecta. Another 2 continents you have to. He finishes the continental tour. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
If you can coach in Antarctica, though, that would be the impressive thing.
Yeah, coach a bunch of Penguins. So next thing you know, he's the
that's hockey. That's hockey.
I was about to say, yeah, no. So to finish off our episode, just with a few off-season calendar dates and some expectations. So the half-day transfer window, that's on December 9th. The MLS expansion draft on December 11th. That is when that is, with the eligible players announced on the 10th of December. End of year waivers occur and free agency opens up on the 12th of December. Re-entry draft with the first stage on the 13th of December, the second stage on the 19th, and then MLS Super Draft on the 20th of December, where the Fire hold the third pick in each round. So even though we are, I believe, Tim, you said 9 weeks about away from preseason, there's still a bit of MLS.
Not the start of preseason, not players reporting to preseason. That's typically around the time the first preseason matches happen.
Or when the first preseason matches start. So even earlier than that, but we still got a lot of Fire / MLS things happening this winter. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and on top of that, of course, we have the transfer window opening. The Fire have, somewhere between 1 and 2 DP slots open. That's barring any roster rule changes, which before MLS was hinting that the reason that there weren't more last year is there's going to be more this year. So we'll see if that happens. So yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of time. The Fire have substantial space and flexibility in their roster now, although not unlimited. There's still some players that seem to be kind of bolted down for next year, some of whom you may or may not really want bolted. So it's going to be an interesting, really 2 months, which is crazy to say because it feels like I used to think the offseason was a lot longer, but it's, just 2 months until the team is, playing games where we get to at least see the scoreline, even if they're not broadcast like they were previously.
Yeah, not broadcasted, or we were getting live updates from the Twitter or from other social media. So yeah.
I mean, the live updates though, half the time that was like, all right, we're at kickoff. And then the next tweet is like, it's, 5-2 at halftime. And then, like 30 minutes later, all right, there's a delay because an alligator ate the soccer balls. And you're like, what the hell is going on down there?
I miss preseason with Tyler Terrence at the picnic table. That's the preseason I miss. That's the preseason I want.
Those were the best.
Tyler Terrence on the picnic table. I want that preseason. Fire, make it happen. If you're listening. So, all right, gentlemen, anything else to add for our listeners as we retreat again into the darkness of the off season?
It's cold in the dark.
It is true. It's getting a lot colder now.
It's going to be an interesting, like I said, it's like 2 months until the Fire have to get game ready, and that's going to be, it's not a lot of time.
Nope.
It's going to be interesting, I think.
Very interesting, to say the least. So, I, as always, have been Alan, the Pole with the Goal, joined by DJ and Tim. It's cold, but make sure you bundle up. Come on, you men in red.
Almost.